So hello and welcome back. I apologize for all the noise and the shitty quality of everything. So what is going on is that we are having another storm of the century this year. It's like the fifth one or whatever. And we are cut off from the mainland. So I don't have to go to work. And I can't drink water from the tap or take a shower because the water is out. A pipe burst because we got so much rainfall. And I figured, what better to spend my time with than play some free fucking horror games, which is what I'm gonna do. And I'm gonna take you with me along on the journey. Because on the website I often will recommend free horror games that are available completely for free, usually on Steam. And I very rarely, if ever, actually play them. And you might be thinking, what the fuck, do you not play things that you recommend? And like, no, I don't when they are free. Not as a rule, because they will cost you literally nothing to try. But since I'm stuck on a deserted island, like, let's play some fucking free horror games and see if they're good or not. So this is LA Monsters. I know absolutely nothing about it because I just don't. And we have story, credits, and bonus. Yeah, I like the art style.
Josh and Sid are brothers who live in rural California. They play out on the street during the day and move their makeshift hockey goalposts when familiar neighborhood cars roll past. Well, because, they play hockey, and sometimes cars come by, and so they gotta move the goalposts. That's the way it works. Their parents fight sometimes, but not too much. It's a happy bubble of a small family.
Okay, so we have two brothers, Josh and Sid, and they apparently get along. And as I said in the very beginning, very nice art style. It seems that it's some kind of visual novel thing.
Josh is the oldest brother. He's already strong-headed and getting into trouble at school. His antics are putting a strain on the family, and his parents are beginning to whisper about medication. Special schooling, and violent video games. Sid is the youngest brother, and he looks up to his brother, Josh, more than anyone else in the world. Sid likes dogs, but isn't allowed one because his mother is allergic to them. He wants to be an accountant, like his father, but doesn't know what that even hot damn means.
So one of the brothers is completely normal, and the other one not so normal, a bit of an outcast. And the narrator is very weird. And as I said in the very beginning, I love the art style.
One late night, Josh is still awake. Something is bothering him. He can't quite place what it is. The hallway light, it's on still. Josh goes out into the hall of the family home he's grown up in. He discovers his parents. But they aren't his parents. They are pressed to the TV screen in the games room. That's right, the TV screen in the games room. Locked into a private ritual with the blazing pool of pulsating static on the screen of the TV. Josh, he tries to get their attention, then tries to pull them away, then can't stop crying. Josh rushes to make sure his brother is still there, and he is. Sid is asleep in his bed.
Sometimes when I narrate scripts, I read them in a funny way, and I do a little bit of acting so that I can better remember the words before I actually record them. And this is what this sounds like. This sounds like the narrator was reading the script to himself so that he could better get a feeling for what it sounded like, and apparently the recording button was on and then he sent it by accident to whoever the developer is. This is what this feels like. This is not great, which is a shame, because the music is great and the visuals are great, And I can already tell that it's gonna get a little spooky.
Several weeks pass, and the brothers live out their lives as an odd ritual to the altar of their hypnagogic parents. The parents' skin is darkened, and the one time Josh pulled out the power cable from the TV, they grabbed him, and he quickly put it back. He would have bruises for a long time after that, where his father clamped his hand around his wrist, and where his mother locked onto his ankle. The brothers fed themselves the best they could and saw their children caring for their own parents alone in their small part of suburbia. The other kids were strangers now. School friends looked right through them. The brothers were eating a lot of candies, felt sick all the time.
So something seems to be happening to the parents. They seem to be locked in front of the screens, and the children have been left to fend for themselves. Which, that's cool. Children are the great equalizer, right? We've all been kids at some point, so we can all relate to being kids and being alone and feeling threatened. And this story, it takes the most safe place of any kid's life, and that's their home, and it makes them unsafe. It turns them into a cold wasteland devoid of warmth from their parents, because they are cold, dead zombies.
Occasionally, the TV would flicker and images soaring spectacular, a bizarre montage of hedonistic, blood-soaked bodies, steel talons, and that constant roar of static. So loud the brothers put pillows over their heads and against their doors so I could sleep. The brothers, Josh and Sid, were lost in their own house.
And something seems to be happening to the TV. It seems to be sending out signals, probably to capture whoever parents haven't been affected yet.
Sid, the younger brother. I heard static change on the TV one night. It went from... It was different. Josh had most of the pillows piled up on top of him to block out the noise and didn't hear. But Sid did. Sid walked out and he saw it for the first time. A monster. A huge steel crow. Ha-ha! So ancient and gruesome, young Sid didn't have words to describe
There's a
to
steel
his
crow.
brother
Yeah.
later.
Oh, there.
The monster enveloped their small home. It pressed against their house and was staring in at them. The monster exploded through, impaling and picking up Sid's parents in front of him in a flash of black and crimson steel. His parents were gone and there was a hole in the roof.
So another thing happened that I was saying, that it turned the most safe place a kid knows into the unsafe place. An external force literally came and ripped their parents from them. And even though the parents were literally quite cold and not completely at all there, there was still a comfort in having some remnant of them physically there, I'm sure. And now something is definitely gonna happen.
The brothers didn't know what to do. They were running low on food and their parents had been taken by a monster. Crow, they called him. Crow. There was nothing to stay for. Sid said, "We have to go after Crow. We have to get our parents back." Josh agreed. He thought his younger brother was acting more like him, more impulsively. Josh also thought it would be easier for him out there where the monsters were real and not in his head. Oh, it gets crazier. Trust me. The brothers needed a way to move unseen in the world of the monsters. They had seen other children be taken, seen other monsters on the TV. They needed to look like they belonged in the land of monsters, and so they made themselves into monsters with felt, tape, staples. bed sheets using their mother's sewing machine. They created their own monsters.
So kids can't take care of themselves. They've been eating candy, and I'm sure a lot of children have already been dying because they've accidentally set fire to their kitchens in an attempt to make food, if they even know how. I think that's cool. Like, these children are now feeling maladjusted because they aren't fed properly and don't probably have access to running water. And they probably could have stayed in their houses a while longer if they were adults, because they would have known that when the world got fucked, that they should start stocking up on water, and they would have gone to the nearest grocery store, and they would have eaten the things that were gonna perish first, and then the non-perishables later. So that's cool. I'm sensing some Lord of the Flies vibes from this, and I'm here for it.
Josh was a red monster.
He is the red monster.
Sid was a
He is
blue
a blue
monster.
monster.
The path that's clear to the brothers would be to Los Angeles, a city they have both never been to. They took a map from the garage.
Because that is where the parents are. Fair enough. Or where they think they are.
Josh wanted to drive, but their father had the car keys in his pocket when he was taken. As the brothers leave their home, the kids in the other houses looked out at the brothers leaving. There were less kids in the windows every day, less and less. The ones that were present that day saw two monsters leaving a house with a destroyed roof. Yeah. Some of the watching children were curious that they didn't see the monsters enter, only leave. Some were too hungry to care.
Yeah, so the children are slowly dying due to their mistakes, which they are making because they are children.
The brothers travel through the streets of the neighborhood. Sid is pulling an overloaded red wagon. Yeah, red wagon. Filled with toys, VHS tapes, some of the last remaining food they had, and also a baseball and a Perspex box. Yeah, Perspex box. Sid's father always told him it was very special and that he couldn't play with it.
Yeah, so this is where we're camped. Yeah, and you can see things seem to be catching fire over in the distance, and we don't seem to be the only children that are out looking for something. Neat.
It took almost an entire day to reach the town they lived next to. The brothers were tempted to try and get a car from another house, but every time they approached, the children inside screamed and the brothers rushed away. They needed a car and some supplies if they were going to make it to their parents in LA. The town felt bigger than they remembered. Each building seemed to look at them. It was quiet, with more people like your parents, more grown-ups, standing, staring, searching out signals, gray skin, black eyes, skeletal monsters, seeing nothing. The brothers could tell they were entering Monster Town.
Oh yeah, and an interesting thing that I noticed, the brothers, they also packed the wagon full of like useless fucking shit that's not gonna be of any use to them at all, and they've even like overstocked the wagon so it's heavy to pull. Like, they're not gonna find a use for a VHS tape out here in the middle of nowhere, and it makes sense for children to bring their favorite stuff even though it won't do them any good, and that their favorite mementos are mementos that they can't really experience because they're gonna need a VHS and a DVD player. Or, well, a VHS player. And yeah, I think this takes place in like the late 80s maybe. That seems to be the deal because they are using a VHS and not a DVD.
The brothers found what they were looking for, supplies. They spent the night in a tent in a shop at the mall. They were on an adventure. But they felt very, 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 very small. The noises of the town were sudden, violent, and then scary. But with the tent closed up, it was just them. And they watched a video that they brought with them on a portable TV.
Apparently I was wrong.
And the noises in the night sounded distant. Then the brothers slept. There is a noise that Sid recognizes. It's the sound that the TV made when Crow came for his parents. It is terrifying. The camping TV flickers and burbles up an image of the town from way up in the air. The boys start to hear shuffling noises around them. The TV has attracted them. The gray skeleton figures clumsily shuffles through the tents, searching out the sweet signal. The brothers move quietly, crawling out of the tent, dragging their cart, but leaving the TV as a distraction. They can hear the massive gray fingers muffling the TV with their bodies as they coldly embrace it. The sound of the static can still be heard in the town as every TV and speaker is vibrating with Crow's wrath. "We need to get another TV," says Josh. "It can show us when Crow is nearby. We can see the distortion on the screen when it comes nearby and use it to track Crow down," said Josh.
Yeah, and there's an absolutely post-apocalyptic classic here. They take refuge in a mall in the camping section and sleep in the tents in the camping section. And we also learn here that apparently the monsters are attracted to the TVs when you turn them on, which is... yeah, that makes sense.
The brothers make it to the car in the showroom. It's like a fantasy of picking whatever car you want for free and driving it away, but it doesn't feel like a fantasy. It feels more like a nightmare. They pick a car and that need to drag in some boxes. We don't even understand what that's all about. So Josh can reach the pedals. Now we understand. Then the brothers drive off. Crow is flying back to LA and the brothers follow it for a while until it disappears over the horizon. All the monsters in the town didn't pay any attention to the two monsters driving the car. Not did they? The city is starting to burn. As the brothers hit the highway, they can see it, but they don't mention it to each other. They both don't know what to say to make the other feel better.
I really enjoy that the graphics seem like you tried to take an image and then convert it to a format that could be displayed on a computer that's so old that it can't properly display pictures. Like something pre-Windows 95. This looks like, yeah, a computer with like 16 colors trying to emulate an image that has 16 million colors. It has a neat look and definitely adds to the atmosphere of when this is supposed to be set. This is the video game equivalent of putting a VHS filter over your found footage film. It's simple, but it definitely works.
Sid marks the map with crayons, showing the distance traveled so far and how far they have left to go.
Journeying. Oh, we are actually in the home stretch. Okay. No, he's dressed like Batman.
Their car ride fades from escape to freedom. They were trapped inside for so long they feel free. They listen to music on the stereo and talk about how they're going to kill Crow. They laugh for the first time in a while, playing music and putting their heads outside the car's windows and and they enjoy the way the sun feels on their skin.
Oh, a lot of monsters.
The brothers arrive in the shadow of the city of Los Angeles. The streets are flooded with more TV dead skeletons, and as the brothers approach, they're forced to abandon the car and move across overturned cars in the street, like they are playing The Floor is Lava. Remember that game? The city is so big, and the brothers came from such a small town.
If you're after LA, and it seems to be even more of a hellscape than where they came from. It's getting interesting. Oh, another person.
The brothers are stuck. The trail of cars has run out, and they're contemplating spending the night on the roof of an abandoned bus when a girl in a bucket hat shouts down to them. That's right. She has a bow on her back, and she guides them to her, creating a gap in the horde, and then occasionally shooting an arrow if one of the TV dead gets too close to the brothers. She drops a rope ladder, and the boys climb up to her.
So we've definitely arrived at the portion where things are gonna get a lot of the flies-y, I think. I'm Batman.
The brothers thank her. And Josh doesn't think he has ever seen a girl prettier than her. Oh, she rescued them, but doesn't want to help them any further. But she can see the brothers are hopeless and naive. She decides that she will take them some of the way and keep them safe. They don't talk. When they stop to eat, the girl is happy to get some of their food, leftovers from the camping store. They begin to tell each other stories, not all of them, but the girl learns of their journey to save their parents. The girl tells them about how the city has changed. She tells them that monsters rule LA, and she is there to kill Crow, and they should travel together for safety. As the brothers move from building to building, sleeping on rooftops under smoggy stars of LA, inside office buildings, scavenging food and drinks from vending machines, time passes. Josh liked spending time with the girl, and Sid felt a sense of family in those dark days. There were other monsters in the city, other kids, some had guns. Sometimes the brothers could see lights in the distant buildings at night, and the girl would tell them about the clans of monsters in the city, of the violence, the chaos that came from all this, and how dangerous things were. She helps keep the brothers safe, and they know it. Yes, they know it.
Yeah, things have definitely devolved. The children have been left to fend for themselves, and they've chosen the Lord of the Flies way, which is what happens. It's a very simple premise, but it fucking works, right? Like, we get it. They are literally incomplete beings that haven't had all the training in being decent that they should have had, and even people that have had all that training in how to act, and they also devolve into these situations. So children even more, and with an extra aura of theatrics, I'm sure. Like, the brothers have been dressing up as superheroes, I believe, so that they seem scary to the other children. And I'm sure that the monsters that we're gonna meet in LA have also dressed up. Yeah. I don't know if it's a nod to the post-apocalyptic show The Tribe. It probably is, because that was also a show where all the adults died to a mysterious virus and where all the children are dressing up in funny costumes. Maybe. He did do like a weird Australian accent at some point. And that show's from New Zealand, so which is close. Again, I really like the visuals. So cool.
The brothers and the girl lose track of time.
Audio's out of sync.
They begin exploring. They meet friendly monsters in family restaurants, playing arcade games, eating endless amounts of junk food. And they saw other monsters with big chunky handguns and bandoliers of ammunition. They stayed clear of them. The girl could always spot them coming, and the brothers and the girl would become very small and hide under desks and in between walls and wait for the loud monsters to pass by. But one day, the girl was not so lucky. And she didn't hear them. Sid didn't hear them. And the monsters found them. It was an ambush. He had been tracked for some time. There was a legion of monsters cackling with big guns. They got Sid. They had a gun to Sid's head. The gun looked very big. Sid was sobbing. The girl drew an arrow. The monsters all thought that this was funny. They were wearing a variety of monster disguises. It was hard to tell where the disguise ended. And the children began. "Let him go," said Josh.
"We've been following you,"
said the monster with a big handgun to Sid's head.
"What monsters are you?"
said the monster with a big handgun. "We're not with anyone." His voice was voice steady. "Now let my brother go," said Josh.
"What are you doing in Monster City? Don't you know it's dangerous?"
said the monster with a gun in a cruel and unfunny way. "We've come to rescue our parents. Crow took them." It sounded hollow coming out of Josh's mouth. Josh didn't really know what he was doing in L.A. anymore. The monsters surrounding them hooted and chuckled at Josh's reply.
"Your parents are dead. Crow took them. They don't come back. No one does,"
said the monster with a big handgun. "Just let us go on our way. We're peaceful. We can trade," said the girl.
"What do you have to trade for your brother?"
said the monster with the big handgun. "We have VHS tapes," says the girl.
"What movies do you have?"
asks an impolite onlooker who has remained silent up until now, holding an AR-15 rifle. "We have the final episode of Yu-Gi-Oh!" the girl said.
Yeah. The final episode of Yu-Gi-Oh! Would be extremely valuable contraband, I'm sure, in the post-apocalyptic world where it's only children that live the life. I like that.
"No way,"
says the monster with the AR-15. "I recorded it off TV. It's good. I even cut out all the ads," Josh says. Josh slowly takes off his backpack, then puts his hand in and pulls out a tape. The monster with the AR looks hungrily at the tape. They exchange the tape for Sid slowly and in silence. Then, as they're handing the tape over, the monster with the gun looks up at the taller, older Josh.
"How old are you?"
he asks. 15, Josh says.
"When is your birthday?"
says the monster. "Why?" asks Josh.
"That's when you're going to hear this signal. That's when everyone hears the signal. When they're 16, that's when you die."
The small boy with the gun and the monster costume smiles. And the monsters with guns dissolve back into the building. The brothers and the girl are alone again, but they can still hear the sounds of the excited monsters urgently bringing the VHS tape to the closest VCO.
The thing where when you age to a certain point, then you also get sick, that's also a thing from the tribe. I wouldn't be surprised if these two were connected. I'm pretty sure that this is actually set in the same year as the tribe TV show started airing.
They travel in silence for what feels like a long time. That night, Sid sleeps curled up. Josh and the girl take watch. The girl tells her story to Josh. All this time, she hasn't told anyone else. She was at the movies with her parents the day the signal turned on. Her little sister was with her when the signal came through on the big screen and speakers changed to the thick static hum of the signal. All the grown-ups surged towards the screen. They trampled her little sister like she wasn't even there to them. She wasn't quite dead, but she died quickly. I stayed with her. I called out for help, but they could only hear the signal. After that, it was bad. The girl didn't know what to do with herself. Eventually, some people found her. Monsters in the city, like the ones that just threatened to kill Sid. They took her in because she was scary, violent, lost, and could use a bow, which was quieter for killing other monsters. But it turned bad. The leader hit 16 or around there and died. Yeah, that's right, died. The monster clan imploded. It turned real bloody. Again, she watched for a second time as people she cared for died. It wasn't long after that when she found the two brothers, innocent and stranded on a car roof. She tells Josh that they're all going to die soon enough, either by monsters or when they age out. 16 can. Josh tells her that he is already 16, just forgot about it. They briefly kiss. The moon is very large. Josh and the girl decided on that night they will do everything in their power to kill Crow, to stop the signal. That night felt special to both of them.
Well, that got dark all of a sudden. We've moved on from there being implications that children have been dying, but we hadn't had outright confirmed it until now.
It takes several days for the brothers and the girl to reach where the signal was coming from. The brothers used their portable TV with an antenna attached to track the crow and follow it back to a tower, a big tower. It's obvious from a long way away that this is where the signal comes from. There's lots of TV dead in the street, packed up against each other. They make no noise, and apart from wind and the creaking of satellite dishes and sound of wind through cables, it's very, very quiet. The brothers and the girl jump from rooftop to rooftop, climbing down onto cars when they have to cross the streets to the tower. The signal is getting louder and louder, but only for Josh. He can see it in his head now like a burning static sky at the back of his eyes. The portable TV starts to flicker and Crow is nearby. He is hungry. Josh knows that Crow can see him now. Josh knows that Crow wants him now in a primal elemental hunger that Josh is only now. They rush into the tower. Crow attacks! The silent TV dead hordes are now screaming. The signal is so loud it's deafening. White line inside their heads. Josh desperately climbs the stairs, chasing after the others as he stumbles from the pain inside of his head. Crow stabs through the concrete and glass of the building, blindly scarring the structure in rage. Crow won't stop. It's hungry for Josh. It knows him. Josh breaks away from Sid and the girl. Josh looks at his brother and he looks betrayed. The girl knows what Josh is going to do and only looks, nods. Josh turns, runs, pulling Crow away. Sid tries to go after his brother to save him, but the girl stops him and starts dragging him up the stairs. They can't hear as Crow tears into Josh with its razor talons slicing through him, disemboweling him. They're too far away to hear Josh cry out for the last time.
Yeah, it just gets darker like that. Legitimately, like I shivered down my spine. Yeah. Oh, I have that cold sensation that you feel. Holy shit! Oh. Yeah, real shit. God damn.
Sid and the girl go past anonymous floors full of desks with cables and smashed computers. No one has been in here. The monsters were always afraid to go in, and it feels like a mummified ghost town. Quiet. The cables that had been dormant, filling the rooms, are hungry. They start to reach out and snare the girl. That's right. One grabs her arm and leg. She kicked it off. Another lashes her wrists, but she managed to cut loose with an arrow. And then more find her, and more. Far too many. And she is underneath a mass of seething black plastic.
Can we stop with the darkness for like 5 fucking seconds? Jesus fucking Christ, so now another kid is dying. A kid that's been murdering other children. The fuck?
Sid cries out, but it happens too fast, dreamlike. He continues through the labyrinthine tower. He finds his way through to the top floor. He feels separated from the world, floating somewhere private. It's quiet up here. As he walks through the TV office at the top of the tower, he removes his monster head. The office looks quite normal apart from a huge row of machinery on one side of the room and a button with a piece of paper next to it saying, "Play me," written in red Sharpie. Sid presses play, and after some static and tracking, the tape begins to play.
Might as well press play on the thing because he's lost literally fucking everyone around him. God damn. And they say Scandinavian horror is dark. God fucking damn.
10,000 years ago, at the bottom of the ocean, there were subnautical sea creatures. They were colossal, bigger than cities. They had huge brains that worked differently than we do now, and their brains were strong enough to shape the world they lived in. Eventually, these ancient oceans became deserts. But below Los Angeles, California, there were a few of these creatures still left stuck in perpetual stasis, dreaming. The original settlers came to this place because of them, because of the power of the creatures' dreams. Eventually, an industry will be set up to broadcast their dreams across the world. But as every image was broadcast, more and more was taken from the sleeping colossi, going even deeper into their sleeping brains. Long cables were injected. Dark passages and caverns started to emerge in the creature's brain. Eventually, we took too much. Their minds began to cave in on themselves. They went from dreaming the most beautiful dreams to the darkest nightmares, twisting the world above them into their dark subterranean fantasies. If you're hearing this, it's over. The signal has already gone out. The world is their nightmare now. We're trying to kill them in the end, but we couldn't. The TV office has a direct link to the colossi brain. If you have the sword, now's the time to kill the monster. Sid sees where they pull the VHS tapes from, where the voice on the tape told him to go. Sid moves towards the machine and then stops. He puts his hand under his monster costume and pulls out a VHS tape. He puts it into the slot. He presses it down. The mechanism picks it up and pulls it in. You can hear the disparity sounds of the tape patch being opened and the black vinyl thing spooled out. Warm images begin to play on the CRT screens around him. Warm colors and laughter. Children's faces float in and out of focus. Wood-tiled floors. Laughter, happiness. Sid and Josh, younger, holding a hummingbird on their finger. Deep down, where the cables enter the sleeping monster's head and connect to the tower in the city, far, far above, the images reach back. The creatures feel the images. Its nightmare begins to slow. It quiets down. Below the Earth's surface, there is a soft, radiant light of innocence and joy. The restless colossi slides back into a deep, tranquil sleep that it's not experienced in a long, long time. The signal flickers and shimmers and stops. The creature is now tranquil. The girl, many floors below, is released from the cables that were choking her to death. She sees the skies out of the window and can tell the world is different again.
So in case you didn't catch that, there were once reality-altering beings that lived beneath the oceans. So fish that could change the reality around them. Eventually, these fish became trapped under what would become Los Angeles, in, I assume, like pockets of underground, like water reservoirs. People came here because they knew that the fish existed. And they drilled into their brains and began broadcasting the dreams the fish had, because they apparently had some kind of actually reality-altering effect. Not as strong as when they were alive, I assume, but some effect. Eventually, they had to drill deeper into their brains, destroy and damage their brains more and more, and what we just experienced is what happens if you drill too deep into these creatures' brains. Their dreams became nightmares, and that is what caused the apocalypse. And now, we've ended it, we've severed the connection. The world will no longer be affected by these colossuses, for good or for bad. It's what a twist. I really like that. God damn. Yeah, they're all in disintegrating. Oh shit.
Crow disintegrates in the sky, becoming just pieces of metal, blood, bone, plastic, as it falls, showering the city streets with its carcass. The girl and Sid stand on the rooftop of the tower, the highest building in LA. They look out at the city. They've just woken from a nightmare, says the girl. Sid is still looking out over the many thousands of blocks, over the mountains and deserts and oceans. I'm going to miss my brother a lot. I'm going to think of him every time I wake up. The girl says, I will too. Sid says, I like being LA monsters with you, even the bad parts, but it's time to become something else. Something more, something new.
But I think the thing that these two kids are missing here is that part of the horror that they went through, it wasn't the monsters it wasn't the monsters created by the Colossus. It was kids living in what looked to be a part of town that was actually quite deserted. There were no TV dead. So even though there are no TV dead around anymore, it's still a world without their parents, and still a world full of tiny murderers. So I don't think it's going to be quite paradise, but maybe that's not what they're expecting. Maybe they do know that it's going to be easier now, but it's still going to be hard. An incredibly surprising tale. I always love when I find these 3 games and they end up speaking to me a lot more than games that costs money do. This was, yeah, fucking great. I loved it. I don't know how many times I can say that before it gets repetitive, but I will, and truly, this was absolutely fucking great. It was obviously inspired by a lot of really great works of art, but it definitely put its own original spin on it, like reality-altering fish that are trapped in stasis beneath Los Angeles have been used by TV companies to influence reality, and they eventually get too greedy, and like the dwarves in Lord of the Rings, they dig too deep and all the nightmares come out. Brilliant. And it also goes from being sort of like ethereal and surreal, and there's a bunch of times in the game where the kids, they sort of like mention that they kind of like understand that some of the things that they think are dangerous in monsters aren't real. Josh, he says this right when they leave the house. He says something like, when we leave, we'll be able to tell which monsters are real and which are not. And we go from that sort of reality where they are as much afraid of monsters as they are of the monsters' metaphorical shadows, right? They can't tell what is real, and they are as much afraid of, they think they just don't quite understand, and the things that are actually really there. And we go from that to things actually being quite dangerous and actually being supernatural, and there being like a crow thing, because like, the crow thing could be like a metaphor. We could actually see that it is a robot dinosaur that exists for whatever reason. Yeah, fucking brilliant game. I looked up the creator when there was a cut right before. I looked up the creator, and he's actually made a couple of other games, and I have bought both, and I will play them at some point. He's also made some VR games, but I'm not gonna play those. Both of its other games, the non-VR stuff, is available for $1 each, I believe, which is, yeah, super cheap. And both look like they have an interesting art style, and I'm gonna assume they also have an interesting story. I really like the music in this also, and I think my only criticism of this is that it's a little bit buggy. The slides don't match up to the narration always, so you're not quite always sure when to press onwards, because you don't want to skip anything, you don't want to miss out on hearing any of the dialogue. And it's a little glitchy, like there was at one point where the dialogue started looping, so that wasn't great. And the narration, I appreciate that it's kind of like a grandpa telling a story, but here's the thing about narration when you are doing it for games and I assume everything. You need to speak a lot faster than you would assume you would need to. If you speak in a normal tone of voice, then you actually sound like you are on painkillers. And it's easy for your audience to get distracted. Right now I'm actually speaking 50% faster than I would otherwise in my normal speaking voice when I'm speaking to human beings, and you need to do that in order to sound like you're speaking normally. I know it's a little bit confusing, but that's how it is, and if you ask every YouTuber, they will agree with me that you need to speak faster than what feels natural. It's just, I don't know if it's because our brains are trained to thinking that is the natural narration voice, and an actual natural narration voice just sounds odd, or if it's just how that shit works. But anyways, he speaks very slowly. He stops speaking and then he starts speaking again, and it's not a great listening experience, which is a shame because he actually has a great voice. And I especially like the section where he's doing multiple voices for multiple characters. He has that like really good fucking like grandpa tells you a bedtime story voice. That's super great. And he also has like some weird flops which are left in the script, and he doesn't always follow the script. And I guess a part of that is also because the script has a few errors here and there. There's a bit where it's scaring when it actually means to say scarring, and some sentences that are worded awkwardly, which I think might be because this is not made by Americans, and why it then takes place in America I will never fucking know. Please, for the love of fucking God, write what you know. It is gonna be so much more compelling. Not that you aren't allowed to write stories about like stuff that happens in America, but like, we are so familiar with those stories and they are so oversaturated. We would much rather know what happens in your little corner of the world. One of my favorite examples of this is like a dude that I know who lives in the Canary fucking Islands, which is like, do you know where that is? You probably don't know where that is. And he makes games that are set in Japan, and it's like, bro, why? You live in a place that is much more interesting because it's much more novel, and no one has ever made a game that's set in that place. You could make so interesting games because like, there's a whole thing about that place. And he makes games about Japan, which everyone knows. And like, yeah, write what you know. And if you are an American from LA, I'm sorry. Turn on like the autocorrect thing in Word. Like it will help you fix those mistakes. But anyways, yeah, super great game. Really loved it. It's a free game, and you can play it if you also loved it. And I would love it if you released the soundtrack for it. That would be great. But yeah, I think that's pretty much been it for me. I'm just sitting here rambling, waiting for the fucking storm to pass. Have you played any free games that you think are cool and that I should maybe play in the future? Because I might get around to it. Especially like visual novels. I've been getting a little into visual novels lately because I've found out that there are visual novels that are not creepy anime games. Yay. And also, if you know what my Twitter handle is, feel free to tweet me some pet pics, because I would love to see the animals that you spent your life with. So please do that. And until I see you again, bye bye.